What's up, everybody? So you're at this video probably because you are having a tight psoas area, or just your hip flexors feeling tight. Maybe you sit all day at the desk, you're curled in, knees are flexed, or maybe you do a lot of jiu-jitsu like me, you know what I mean? Us in jiu-jitsu, we're always holding in our knees to our chest. We're getting really tight, so we're on a lot of flexion in that front body. So this video is exactly what you need to open that up, considering, and I hope that most of you are not coming from a place of weak hip flexors, but strong hip flexors, and they just might be a little bit tight. So if so, this video is for you. So before I go into some stretching and lengthening of the hip flexors, I just want you to do a couple quick tests. Bring your knees up like so while you're on your back, and bring your knees to your shoulders, but resist it with your hands, and check in and see if you can keep this low back curled in while you're flexing at the hip flexors at the same time. This will sort of tell you how weak you are. We should be able to do this. If you want to go one leg, you can go one leg, do a little bit harder, push a little bit harder, pull with the knee, use those hip flexors, really try to flex it in, and that's a good test. And another one you can do is simply just standing on one leg, pull this knee up, make sure you're not leaning back too much, you're flexing in at that hip flexor area, and reach your knee up as high as you can go. You should be able to get your knee close to the shoulder while you're reaching your chest forward. Hope you can see that in the camera. But that will let you know where your range of motion is, your mobility with your hip flexors. You should be able to lift your knee all the way up, feel comfortable there, breathe for 5 seconds. And if you're here, straightening out your leg will engage those quad muscles too, which again, those help your hip flexors in terms of strengthening. So if you have strong hip flexors, you're good to go. But now we need to loosen them up in case they're always flexed, or maybe you're sitting too much. So the most gentle pose for this is a wind remover pose. So you're just gonna hug in one knee. So maybe you're hugging your left knee first. And right here, you'll feel the curl in the pelvis, and you should be able to feel the lengthening, little stretching sensation in the hip flexors. Pull that shoulder all the way into the armpit. And if you're not feeling much of a stretch, which I know I won't here, go ahead and put a block under the sacrum. That's gonna be your best friend here. So let that right leg drop again, pull the left knee in, and now you should feel that stretch and that right hip flexor. This is a great pose to play around with. Breathe, 20 deep breaths on both sides, maybe before bed, maybe during your work day, in the middle, after your first couple hours of sitting, flexed in, do something like that. And then next, if you have the space for it, and I don't care if you're at work, you need to tell your boss you need space so you can open up your body. So you come into a little lizard pose like this. So one leg is up, one leg is back. And right here, just if I tuck in the tailbone here, I could feel a great stretch here in the hip flexors already. And this is something you could play around with. So I can kind of tilt my hip to the side, to the left, open up this foot to the side. And now I can do a little rotation here. And now I'm getting the outside parts of that hip flexor area. And you really feel it, trust me, as you let the hip fall down. And if you want to add in the quad stretch as well with the hip flexors, you can bend at that right leg, hug it in. But either or, you're feeling it. You want to really breathe into that area that you're stretching. And another reason I really love lizard variation is because you can hop into this right here, and some people call this a knelt dragon, but it really doesn't matter what you call them. Knelt lunge, doesn't matter. But right here, you're already feeling a stretch. But then you can curl in the toes, and you can play around with your knee as you lift your knee up. And again, untuck, tuck in the tailbone. You can sort of play around with these micro movements that help stretch your hip flexors in different ways, to where wherever you're tight, you can sort of find that sensation. Then you can chill there and just breathe, you know what I mean? So once you find this here, then you might be able to lower down. Then you might want to lower it back, scoot your knee back, whatever it is. Maybe press down now with a flat foot. I know I feel a juicy little stretch here already, and it's wonderful. So again, these poses that you can play around with, and it's all about the tilt of your pelvic floor. So your pelvis tilting forward and then curling in. Curling in is where you're gonna feel that stretch. Because again, when we're opened up, our body wants to, sort of bend for us here. But if we keep that curled in, tuck, you're keeping that tension on these muscles right here, the hip flexors. So as you send forward, so in this case, when we're coming into our lunge, as our hips come forward, we don't stay untucked, because then I lose all my stretch in the hip flexors. We want to stay tucked in the tailbone. Now I feel sensation. Now I can drop deeper and find that juicy spot. So past that, I want you to make sure whenever you're sitting at your desk too long, make sure you stand up, send your hips forward, just do a simple little stretch, simple little rollout for your superficial hip flexors. That'll make a world of difference. So make sure your hip flexors are strong, make sure you're stretching them out, doing these little poses. And with the wind remover, you can put 2 blocks on each other. That's my favorite, by the way. I didn't show that, but you can lift your hips up even more if your hip flexors can have that extra little stretch. And then past that, you need to massage your psoas. So massage your psoas often. You can do this with the Sayulita, a little tool I use every once in a while. You can go to massage therapists. They can really go deep. And there's other tools that you can use to kind of hook in inside that hip point, about a couple fingers in and all around there, up and down. That's where the juicy spot is. So you hit that area, you stretch that area, and the next thing you know, all the little tightness in the low backs, because when you're tight here, it causes an anterior pelvic tilt usually. We walk around with our booty butt sticking out, but this arch in our back is not comfortable. It's a little bit unnatural. So it helps you curl that back in, helps you get your alignment back, helps you live a better life. So hope this video helped you. Nice short little hip flexor stretch routine. Just pick a couple of these. Menos is más, so less is more. I promise you with that, especially with the psoas and hip flexors. So until next time, y'all. Namaste.